Welcome to the VMware Distributed Storage Tech Preview demonstration. In this first part of the demonstration, we will look at scale-out storage capabilities of this distributed storage, and we will also look at how simple it is to create the distributed storage cluster. So as you can see there, it's just a matter of clicking on a checkbox to turn on distributed storage. There are 6 ESXi hosts in this configuration, and the distributed data store has been created across all 6 hosts. However, note that only 3 of the 6 hosts are providing storage towards this data store. The other 3 hosts do not have any storage, yet they can still use this data store for VM provisioning and so on. If we have a look at the data store that we created, you can see that this new data store across those 6 hosts is now 1.36 terabyte size. So our next step is to add another host into the cluster and scale out, and you'll see how simple it is to scale out the distributed storage in just a moment. So we're going to add a new host, and this is no different from adding a host to a cluster, as you can see here. And now we have a 7th host added to our cluster. And if we now have a look at that host, you can see it also has some storage, an SSD and a HDD disk. And if we look at the size of our data store, you can see that it has increased in size from 1.36 terabytes to 1.82. So that's how simple it is to scale out. We'll now have a look at profile-driven storage, or VM storage profiles. This data store that we just created is now surfacing up a bunch of capabilities. These capabilities range from availability, IOPS, and so on and so forth. So we are going to create a new rule, and we're going to use a subset of those capabilities to create a profile for our virtual machines when it comes to deploying these virtual machines. So we filled in some IOPS, and we're also going to give it an availability number of 4 nines. And you can see the matching resources here. That means that the distributed storage data store is the only data store that can match those capabilities. So we'll now go on and provision a virtual machine using that profile. So this is just a straightforward virtual machine deployment. And now we're going to select a profile, which is the one we created earlier, and you can see that the only data store that is compatible was our vSAN data store. Now if we just complete the rollout of this VM, there it goes. If we just have a look at that virtual machine and we have a look at the compliance state, you can see that it is compliant. So let's now do a vMotion. The first thing to point out is that we created that virtual machine on an ESXi host that actually didn't provide any storage to the cluster. So you can see it there, it doesn't have any disks. So we're going to move this virtual machine from one host that isn't providing any storage to the distributed storage data store to another host that doesn't have any storage in the distributed storage data store. And you'll be able to see it changing here in just a moment. So this again is just a standard migration or vMotion. We're selecting our destination host. We'll just finish that operation. And now if you see the host, which is currently 143, changes to host 147, both of which are compute only nodes with no backing storage in the data store. So the final point here is resilience. What we want to show in this particular part of the demo is that if we pull the plug on one of the hosts that's providing storage in our data store, when we pull the plug on that storage, we should not impact our virtual machines because we specify this virtual machine to have a certain amount of availability, so that when we psod this host with a command here, which I would not recommend you run, our virtual machine continues to run. And that completes the demonstration.